Welcome back, everyone, to the Chaos Ball Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. It is April 16th, 2023, as I'm recording, right after the Mariners completed the sweep of the Cubs. And your aforementioned Seattle Mariners are 500. They're a 500 ball club, 8-8 now, about 3 weeks into the season, and they're 500. So this is the baseline. Playing some better baseball recently, but this is more what we've come to expect from this team, I guess. But now we sit at 500, and the season can really begin. You know, the slide was tough to start the year, but now it's you know, it's like when an announcer says, "Oh, it's 0-0 again," when they some team ties the game late in the year. The Mariners are, they're 0-0. They got no wins on the season, no losses. They can officially start the year now. After an extended spring training into the middle of April, finally begin the MLB season. But good to see from them. Heavy Mariners episode today, but can't forget about the baseball reference part of the week. So let's just get right into it. Let's start. As you remember, last week's baseball reference part of the week was Old Hoss Radbourn. If you did not listen to me talk about Old Hoss Radbourn for about 10 minutes last week, I recommend you go do so, or, study up yourself. This week's baseball reference part of the week, this is in honor of the NBA playoffs kicking off a few days ago, and this particular baseball player made the switch from baseball to basketball, and it was probably the right choice, the right career move. This baseball player, his name is Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge, for any NBA fans, you know him as an executive in the NBA, has been for quite a long time. The man absolutely loves first-round picks, loves hoarding first-round picks. Working with the Jazz right now, went to BYU. I mean, he's probably going to stay with the Jazz forever. But Danny Ainge had an illustrious baseball career. That's not true. He had a baseball career. Danny Ainge's career numbers: -2 WAR in 665 at bats, 220 batting average, 264 on base percentage, 269 slugging, 12 stolen bases, 2 home runs, a career 47 OPS plus. So not a great baseball player, to be quite honest. He only played for 3 years, and he amassed, that was around one full season of stats in 3 years, from 79 to 81. His baseball career was short and sweet. He selected in the draft in 1977 by the Blue Jays, got up to the bigs in 79 while he was still in college, and while I presume he was still in college and playing basketball for BYU, because I know he played basketball at BYU when he was in college. I think he started out at BYU and he was in 78, 79 was his freshman year, so he was playing professional baseball while in college, playing basketball as well, which that coincides pretty nicely. The seasons don't really overlap much for college, which is good. Honestly, kind of crazy that Danny Ainge was a two-sport player, but baseball and basketball is not something you see very often. Not a whole lot of overlap there in terms of those particular sports, but so he came up with the Blue Jays in 1979. He played a lot of second base. He moved all over the diamond, though. He's a utility man. He played second base, he played a little third, played some corner outfield. Not much else to say about his baseball career. He had 220. His 2 home runs, in 211 games. Not a huge power threat, more of a utility speed guy, clearly. But one cool thing is he is the second youngest player in Blue Jays history to hit a home run. He was the youngest at 20 years and 77 days, only to be surpassed a few years ago by Vlad Guerrero Jr. So Danny Ainge was a record holder for the Blue Jays up until Vlad Guerrero Jr. came around, and now he's merely second in that list. But 3 years with the Blue Jays, Ainge decided to pursue a career in basketball and was chosen in the 1981 draft by the Boston Celtics, who had to buy out Ainge's contract from the Blue Jays after a legal battle. So that's it. That is it for Freaking Danny Ainge, man. I wanted to honor the NBA this week. And Danny Ainge has a baseball reference page with a photo too. Sometimes random guys don't have photos, but he has a photo. You can go see what a young Danny Ainge looks like in a Blue Jays hat on Baseball Reference. And then on the Wikipedia, it also lists the players who have played both in the NBA and in the MLB. It's a very short list. Only 13 athletes have done both. And I'm going to read these names to you. Frank Baumholtz, Hank Biasotti, Gene Conley, Chuck Connors, Dave DeBuscher. Dave DeBuscher is a great all-time Nick, actually, if I recall. Great is a strong word, but he was a great Nick, we'll say. Steve Hamilton, Mark Hendrickson, Cotton Nash, Ron Reed, Dick Ricketts, Howie Schultz, and my personal favorite, Dick Groat. Dick Groat was, maybe I'll do him as one of my players of the week, but he was actually pretty damn good at both sports as compared to Danny Ainge, who was really not a very good baseball player. But that was the Baseball Reference part of the week. Shout out to Danny Ainge, giving some NBA love for my Baseball Reference part of the week this week. So Danny Ainge, all-time Blue Jay. And if you ever need an interesting fact of second youngest player to hit a home run in a Blue Jays uniform, Danny Ainge is the answer to that trivia question. So let's move on to the chaos moment of the week before I really get into how the Seattle Mariners have been doing. The chaos moment of the week. I'll do a Mariners one and an MLB one. The MLB one, Cleveland Guardians versus the New York Yankees a few days ago. I believe it was on the 12th of April. Playing some baseball in Cleveland, and there was a relay that happened from the outfield to Andres Jimenez in short right center, covering where he should be as a second baseman. Gets the ball, is trying to throw the ball home, rifles it, just absolutely domes the umpire standing right in the way. The umpire did actually have to go to the hospital and get some scans done, but I have done my due diligence, and it seems like he's going to be A-okay, so we can laugh about it. It really, he got right back up, too. Like, he got hit in the head with a very hard thrown baseball. Like, it looked like it hit him, like, in the temple, which is, ow, or, like, right above the ear, just, ouch, God. He got right back up, and then they were like, oh, you should probably go to the hospital, bud, because he's not the youngest umpire, this guy, but shout out to him. Tanked the hit, went to the hospital, he's fine. That was pretty chaotic moment. It ruined the relay and had to pause the game for a little bit. But the Mariners' chaos moment of the week came in Chicago, and it's more of it's an extended moment. I'm just going to go the first 3 innings of the Seattle Mariners versus the Chicago Cubs, in which Chris Flexen started this game versus Hayden Westnecki. Started off in the first, great. Got a couple runs. Piled more on in the second, was up 7-0. Gave up 1 in the bottom of the second. So, 7-1 going into the third. And then by the end of the third inning, it was 9-7. An absolutely epic collapse in one inning by Chris Flexen and a little bit Trevor got, I guess, but Flexen got all of the earned runs, 8 earned runs in one inning. 7 actually, 7. He got 8 total, but 7 in that inning. Only Trevor got an earned run in that inning as well. But that is my Mariners chaos moment of the week. Like, what was that? The first 3 innings was like the most random ass 3 innings I've ever seen, because the game before that, the game on Monday, that was the Tuesday game last week. The game before that was very, it was low scoring, and up until this point, it was like, it's cold in Chicago. Can we score runs? And then the vibes are fantastic going into the third. It was like, oh man, this is going to be a great game. Flexen going to give us a solid outing. Nope. 8-run spot in the second inning. Never recovered. Went on to lose that game. That was a tough one. That was a very tough loss. But that was pretty chaotic. There were a couple others this week, but that was the one. I picked those first 3 innings for a good reason. It was 7-0 to 9-7, and a blink of an eye, really. Kind of a fever dream of an inning. But that is that. And now, really, and what I'm thinking I'm going to title this episode is just Jarred Kelenic. I'm going to talk about Jarred Kelenic now. But the Mariners, as I said, they swept the Cubs. Great start to the homestand with a sweep. Obviously, it's a pretty long homestand. They have a rest, I believe, tomorrow. No rest. They have no game on Thursday, but the Brewers come to town, and then the Cardinals come to town. So 2 NL Central opponents, 2 good teams. The Cardinals haven't been playing as well to start the year, but they're a very good team. And the Brewers are playing fantastic right now. One of the better teams to start the year this year in Major League Baseball. So it's good sweep of the Rockies. That was needed. They needed to do that. I think after dropping 2 to the Cubs and being 3 games under 500, you come back with a homestand and starting it with one of the worst teams in the league in the Rockies, and you handle business and you sweep them. So that's fantastic, especially going into this next stretch of the schedule. I know I said Jarred Kelenic a few minutes ago, but now I'm just talking about the Mariners. The stretch of the schedule right now, they have Brewers, then Cardinals, then they go on the road to the Phillies and Blue Jays to end April. That is a pretty tough schedule for this month of April. It gets a little bit better next month. They start out next month going to the A's, doing a little divisional round, going to the A's and then Astros, Rangers, but huge sweep against the Rockies just for confidence, for vibe, just to get back to 500 before playing for contenders, to be quite honest. I mean, the Mariners are also considered a contender at this point, playoff contender, but Brewers, Cardinals, Phillies, Blue Jays, that is a gauntlet. So good to start that at 500, I guess, and we'll see how the Mariners do. But this past week has been the week of Jarred Kelenic. There's no dancing around it. The national media has now started talking about him and what he's doing. He's been trending on Twitter basically every Mariners game for good reason. He has a 10-game hitting streak right now. He's just been hitting the piss out of the ball. Just what a performance this past week in particular, but 10-game hitting streak is nothing to bat an eye at. The only thing, and I'm going to say the only negative, well, there's a couple, but the only downer move I'm going to do in this episode about Jarred Kelenic right now is it's been like 50 plate appearances. And so I've talked about this, feels like ad nauseum at this point, but the sample size is still so small. It's like we still got to take this with a grain of salt a little bit. But at the same time, it's not like we've ever seen Jarred Kelenic have a stretch like this. We've seen him have stretches where he's a decent to good ball player. We've seen a couple of those stretches as these past couple of years where flashes, you could say, where it's like, oh man, this guy looks like a real baseball player for a week or two, and then goes back to being the worst baseball player on the planet. That is what we've seen these past 2 years. And this year, started out not super hot, had a good spring training, but now is having a streak of 10 games where he is, I mean, even just his stats to start the year are absolutely insane. Like right now he's hitting 356, 408 on base percentage, 733 slugging. That's good for a 1,141 OPS, 214 OPS plus. He has like a 230 WRC plus right now. I mean, an absolutely blistering start to the year. So even in the small sample, we've seen him put up decent small samples. Again, where he looks like a decent baseball player. We've never seen him put up a sample size of 50 plate appearances where he's a top 5 hitter in the league, maybe. We've never seen this from him, and that is insanely encouraging. He's benefited a little bit from the new shift rules too, which is cool. But that was my one preface to everything I'm about to say is the 50 plate appearances is still a very small sample. But again, we've never even seen him put up numbers like this in this small of a sample before. So it's like, okay, well, that's good. That's good stuff. Let's get into it. What has he been doing? He has just been hitting the cover off the ball. I mean, he had 4 straight games with a home run. He hit 3 home runs in Chicago back-to-back games. The first one, slider low and in, hung a slider, absolute moonshot to right field off the scoreboard, hit that really hard. His second one, a fastball, low and away, it caught a little bit too much of the plate, but he muscles that out to left center. And then the third one is potentially it was the longest home run ever recorded by StatCast at Wrigley. So in StatCast, I think they started measuring data in 2014. So past almost decade, longest home run at Wrigley, which is pretty insane. The Chicago Cubs announcers said that they've never seen a ball hit up there. And I tweeted that because I've watched a lot of games at Wrigley, and I've never seen any highlights, anyone live hit a ball up there to like the third deck in center field. Actually insane. I think it was 111, almost 112 off the bat, 482 feet, which is just an absolutely absurd home run. He has the second longest home run in the majors right now, only to Giancarlo Stanton in terms of distance. That home run was insane. The first two were awesome. The first two were expressing, like, the first one was like, okay, he can do that. We've seen him do that. He takes a pitch that's kind of in a wheelhouse for a lefty and he cranks it to right field. We've seen him do that before. We hadn't really seen him take a fastball to left center as deep as he did on that second home run. And then he hit a ball where no one else has hit it in Wrigley before, in center field. Like, just ramping up, increasing difficulties of home runs. The dude is so strong. I mean, we knew this, but he's just putting it on display this year more. He's just hitting the ball more and barreling the ball more. And when he barrels a ball, it is a thing of beauty. He is insanely strong. Like, it's crazy how hard he can hit the baseball. But then he comes then he comes home for this homestand, hits a home run versus the Rockies as well. Has been playing great defense. He had the only RBI and a game-saving diving catch in right field today to basically win the ball game versus the Rockies, 1-0. He has been somewhat putting the offense on his back this week. I mean, the offense has come alive more than what we saw in the first couple weeks, but he's been the best offensive player. It's been insane to watch. As I said, he has the second longest home run by StatCast this year. He has he's sixth overall in the league in slugging. He is fourth in expected slugging. He's just lighting the world on fire right now. It is insane. I mean, he is in the top 9% of the league in average exit velocity, top 6% of the league in expected batting average, top 1% in the expected slugging, top 2% in WOBA, which is weighted on base average. StatCast's very cool version. It's not a version of on base percentage, but it's on base average, so, and weighted. So it's tells you a good amount of how much a guy gets on base. Top 4% in hard hit percentage. I mean, he's just hitting the ball so well. And what's really encouraging is the 3 home runs in Chicago, for example. Those were they weren't meatballs, really. I mean, the hanging slider on the first one kind of was, especially to a lefty, if you kind of put it not middle of the plate, but low and in, touching a little bit too much to plate. That's kind of the wheelhouse. And then the other fastballs he hit, the 2 other ones, I mean, again, they weren't right down the middle, but they were fastballs that were touching a lot of the plate. Fastballs that a hitter should capitalize on. And that's what he's doing. If anyone would try to say, and I've only seen like a tweet about this, no one's actually saying this, but I know people think it. It's like, and people have this thought about like Aaron Judge, for example, where it's like, oh, all the hard hits he's getting, all the home runs he's getting are bad pitches. And it's like, yeah, that is the point. That is good. If Like Aaron Judge is last year and the past few years and this season so far has been the best guy at punishing pitches that are touching a lot of the plate, bad pitches like meatballs. He's the best at punishing pitchers for putting a fastball right down the middle. That's what you're supposed to do. That is half of being a major league hitter. So seeing Kelenic fight off pitches, lay off bad pitches, and wait for a ball that's in the middle of the plate that he can do some damage on, and then he actually does do big damage on those pitches is so important in surviving in MLB. It is pivotal that you are able to punish pitchers for bad pitches. And if that's what he does throughout his career, then that's fantastic. Like, pitchers will make mistakes, and it seems like he is, at least to start the year, capitalizing on that more than ever. But it's everything I talked about last week a little bit. It's everything he did in the offseason clearly to just improve. I mean, obviously there's mechanical changes, but we've seen so many, quote, mechanical changes from him these past 2 years. Like, his swing has changed week to week, it feels like the past 2 seasons, and now put in a lot of work in the offseason. The swing looks so good. I think, honestly, the pitch recognition looks better than the swing, and I'm no swing expert, but clearly his pitch recognition is so much better. There's so many breaking balls that he is laying off that are out of the zone that he would have swung right through last year. I think that was the main thing he needed to address this offseason in order to last all year up in the bigs. Is his weakness was breaking balls. He couldn't really hit them in the zone, and if you put it out of the zone, like a decently located breaking ball that starts in the zone, out of the zone, 75% of the time he's going to swing right through that thing. And this year, he's spitting on bad pitches. He's getting in good counts. He's working 3-2 deep counts. He's waiting for the pitcher to put one down the middle of the plate, and he's swinging at it. And he's hitting the ball really hard when he hits the ball. It's a simple approach, really. Wait for the pitcher to throw a bad pitch and hit the ball really hard when he does that. Surprisingly, more people don't employ that strategy, but he's doing it. He's doing it real well. It's what a pleasure it's been to watch him this to start the year. Just been a bright spot. Been really weird to see him have amazing games, and Julio cannot seem to have an amazing game while Jarred Kelenic does. Law of the universe. Only one of them can have a great game. The other one has to have a bad day at the plate. But then a couple more numbers to throw at you. So this year, Kelenic, his swing percentage and stuff in the zone hasn't changed too much, but his chase rate is down. His chase contact percentage is up a little bit, so he is hitting the ball a little bit more when he chases, and he's chasing less. He's swinging less at the first pitch this season, so he's wanting to at least see a little bit more pitches right out of the gate. But the two big ones, well, the one big one, chase rate being down around 6% so far, is great. But then the other one is the zone contact percentage is up 8%. So he's hitting the ball more when pitches are in the zone and he's swinging. And again, when he barrels a ball, he's one of the strongest dudes in the league. I mean, it takes insane strength to do, obviously put a ball 484 to dead center in Wrigley, but that second home run in Chicago where he takes a low and outside fastball to left center, and it wasn't a no-doubter per se, but it kind of was. It wasn't as no-doubty as the crazy 482 one or even the first one, but muscling that pitch out to left center with that much velocity on it is insane. That is insane strength. And he is so strong. If I was a media member and I tweeted this, I would love to know what his powerlifting splits are. What does he bench? What does he squat? What does he deadlift? His legs are huge. His arms are jacked. He's a strong dude, and I can't talk enough about how much he probably lifts, because look at the home runs he's putting up, man. It's insane. His StatCast page is amazing right now. Hit 91st in average exit, 91st percentile in average exit velocity, 96th percentile in hard hit percentage, 89th percentile in max exit velocity. I mean, is like 75th percentage in chase rate. Like, he really is spitting on bad pitches this year, which again is a step in the right direction to becoming a average big league player. And he's basically, it seems like this offseason he took the right steps to, like I said last week, he's looked more like a normal major league player. Like, clearly this offseason he put in so much work to come up and prove, not necessarily the doubters. I don't think anyone in the Mariners necessarily has doubted him up until this point, because we know how much work he's put in. I think this was the season where if he does what he did last year and the year before, then there's major doubt. There's definitely some doubt before, but there was still optimism because he's still 23. I still think the COVID year really screwed up his development a lot more than a lot of guys. He just hit that at a really tough time in his baseball career. But yeah, he just looks like a major league player, but now he's taken it this past week to extreme heights. Looking like a major league player at the plate. He's taking bad pitches. He's working the count. He looks somewhat confident in the batter's box. He is swinging at pitches in the middle of the zone. He's hitting the pitches in the middle of the zone at a good rate. But he's taken that and been like, okay, I can also hit baseballs 500 feet to dead center, which not a lot of guys can do. And we're seeing the upside, the prospect upside, that wasn't promised, but former, top blue chip prospect. We're seeing why. We're seeing this ceiling of a guy who can hit balls that hard and play good defense in the outfield. We're seeing that. I don't think he's going to put up these kind of stats the whole year. But boy, is it awesome to see him at the top of like slugging leaderboards right now. It's amazing. And yeah, he's still only 23. It's only his third year in the bigs. Scott said in the post-game interview today he's super happy for him, but everyone's path is different and it's important to stay grounded. He said the team is really grounded, but it's more important, I think, obviously for him to stay grounded, but the fans. I think the fans need to stay grounded here. I think everyone can step back for a second and look and be like, this is amazing, but we know he's more than likely not going to keep up this type of production all year. I would be willing to bet he won't keep up an OPS that starts with a 1 and 4 digits. He's not going to keep up 1,000 OPS or more all year. There's almost no way. So I think it's important to stay grounded as fans, but it's also good to get excited because we're seeing the guy that the main guy we got back in the Cano Diaz trade. We're seeing it as we imagined it when that trade went through, right? And again, the numbers will go down a little bit, but it's so encouraging because, again, like if it was like a rookie, even if he was like a not a blue chip prospect or anything, and he's doing this, I would look at it similarly to kind of how I looked at like what Joey Meneses did last year in his small sample, where it's like I don't 100% trust that, and I don't 100% trust to the extent of what Jarred Kelenic is doing. But like I said, we've never seen him have a stretch like this. So even if he's a streaky player, which I think he could be, if his good stretches are like this, then we'll take whatever the bad stretches are. If the good stretches are him playing like this, because we've never seen him play this well. We've never, ever seen him light the world on fire like he has this past week. And I'll freaking take that if he's going to be a streaky guy who his heights are like this. I think also the pitch clock is helping him a little bit, honestly. He's had less time to just be in his head in the batter's box and like just thinking about shit in the batter's box. He has less time. He just has to go up there and hit. He has to go up there. He has to trust his mechanics. He has to trust his approach. He has to trust himself. He just has to go up there and hit, and that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. He's been described as like a baseball robot. Like, all he wants to do is get better. He works so hard to get better. All he wants to do is play good baseball. And when it's not going well, like, we can tangibly see how much that affects him. I mean, we see him strike out, and we see how mad he gets at himself, because all he wants to do is play good baseball. And obviously when it's going poorly, it goes really poorly for him. But when it's going well, it's going fantastic, and he's just going to keep working at it. I wouldn't ever he doesn't strike me as a guy who would get complacent at all in anything that he does. So that's the Jarred Kelenic spiel. I mean, it's just been awesome. It's just been the past 10 games, his hitting streak, the whole start of the year, been great to watch. It's been awesome for him. But again, I warn, stay grounded. This is a crazy good stretch. And I hope if he has a bad stretch of 10 games where he doesn't hit a home run, he doesn't do much, we remember this stretch of games and be like, he might just be a type of streaky player, or he might just win MVP this year. I mean, who's to say what will really happen with Jarred Kelenic this year? But the only other thing I will say is the strikeout percentage is still pretty high, but realistically, I do see him as a higher strikeout guy. But that won't matter really that much if he's putting up like a good amount of home runs every year and solid defense in the corner outfield spots. Because like so far this year, and again, the small sample applies to his bad, so his strikeout percentage could improve this year. But the walk percentage is similar to last year's, but the strikeout percentage is down about 3%, but it's still at 30%, so really high. But I think he's more of a 3 true outcome player than maybe we expected of him coming up as a prospect. But that and the sample size are really the only things I can point to and be like, well, those are the negatives, I guess. But then you look at the positives and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm trying with all my might to not now think of him as this type of player until I've seen more, because I'm not just going to get my hopes up and be like, we have our starting left fielder for the next 10 years. I'm trying not to. It's hard to not get excited after watching him do what he did this past week, especially the home runs, dude. The home runs are insane. I cannot believe he hit a ball to the third deck of center field at Wrigley. The wind was blowing out a little bit. Screw that. That is insane. That's ridiculous. It's insane power. And the Goldie call was awesome, but the Chicago Cubs broadcast, their broadcast was better. They were just speechless for a little bit and just said, "Wow." And it was like, "JD, I don't think I've ever seen a ball hit up there before." He's like, "Nope, haven't. That is insane." Yeah, it is. It is. But he's ours. He's our Jarred Kelenic, and he's, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say he's arrived, but he's on the way. He is on the way. And this is just fantastic to watch, especially all of the questions going into the offseason about, and going into this season about left field, and he's like, screw it. Screw platoons. I'm not a platoon outfielder. I can hit both sides of the plate. That's another thing I didn't even mention. He hit a home run off a lefty. He has 4 straight hits against lefty pitching. Again, very small sample, but like maybe now he might just start versus every pitcher. I still think they're going to try to keep him pretty righty heavy, and it's not super hard to do that. But very encouraging that he's looking pretty competent-ish against left-handed pitching. I mean, that's a good sign for the future. Everything he's done these past couple weeks has been a good sign for the future. What a joy to watch. What a good start to the year for him, especially just confidence-wise. Been amazing, and I could talk more about Kelenic, but I won't. That's the Jarred Kelenic update in the Jarred Kelenic episode of the Jarred Kelenic Seattle Mariners season of 2023, as it will be known when the Mariners win the World Series on the backs of Jarred Kelenic putting up a 1,200 OPS in one of the best seasons since Barry Bonds. And with that, what are the other Mariners doing? Well, Colton Wong has an OPS plus of -9, so that's something, right? He's been dreadful for as good as Kelenic's been. Oh, man, Colton Wong. I mean, the small sample applies here, as it does to Kelenic. Very small sample, will likely not hit this poorly the rest of the year, but for a new player on a new team, this is a god-awful start. Could not be worse. I mean, he's hitting .098, 208 on-base percentage, and an .098 slugging. And for anyone who doesn't know, if your slugging is the same as your batting average, that means you've only hit singles and walked with your OBP higher than that. So he has yet to have an extra base hit. Again, his OPS is 306, OPS plus is -9. It's just been awful. It's not even like he's having amazing at-bats. I mean, he's had some good at-bats, but some of them have just been yeesh, and he looks frustrated. I'm not pressing the panic button on Colton Wong yet. I'm really not. But you couldn't really ask for a worse start to your Mariners career than this. Especially since the bar was so low. The second base bar for the Mariners has been insanely low. I mean, ever since Cano left, it's been dreadful. And really, Adam Frazier last year was like, well, Colton Wong can't be any worse than Adam Frazier, right? Well, he's dreadfully worse for the first 2-3 weeks of the season so far. So that is, it's just tough to see. But I'm not pressing the panic button. All right? I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna press the panic button. But like we're getting there. I'll check. We'll check back in like another. We'll check back in first or second week of May and then see what he's doing. All right. In terms of the rest of the offense, has really come alive recently, which is good. The bats have woken up. Teoscar Hernandez has woken up and is hitting like we expected him to. Ball jumps off his bat. Had a few homers last week. He's looked great in the outfield. Surprisingly, he has, let me find this. He's 5th, according to Baseball Reference, in defensive WAR, which is kind of insane. J.P. Crawford is 9th with .4 defensive WAR, too. But Teoscar, we got him for his hitting. Didn't know he was going to be a Gold Glove right fielder. But he looks more like Teoscar. I mean, I wasn't worried. Anyone who was worried is a casual fan. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, he didn't look great, but we knew he was going to be fine. I mean, the track record speaks for itself, and we can see why he's been one of the best hitters in the league. He is aggressive with his swings, and when he hits the ball, he hits the ball real hard. Eugenio, great start to the year. Julio, and not a very Julio start to the year. Better than last year's start to the year, and then what he did in May was insane. So maybe he's just not an April guy. Not an April guy, but still better than last April, and still a good hitter to start the year. The strikeouts are a little much for my liking, but well, he's fine. He'll be fine. Looks good in the field. Looks good on the base path. He'll be fine. Just hasn't been as amazing, I guess. Hasn't been as top 10 player in the league like he was for a good part of the year last year. But yeah, I mean, it's April 16th, so once May hits, he'll be like, oh, okay, I got to start doing stuff. Ty France continues to have great hitting, great Ty Franciness up there at the plate. Loves to get hit. He's gotten hit a few times these last 2 days. Loves his elbow guard. He's the prototypical example of he stands close to the plate, but not as close as like Rizzo. Like Rizzo is an expert at getting hit with the ball. Part of it is because he stands as close to the plate as humanly possible. Ty France does stand close, not quite as close, but he's like a textbook example of he has the elbow guard, and any pitch that's up and in, and it helps that he's a little short, but any pitch that's up and in, he doesn't really lean out of the way, but he doesn't lean into it. He just kind of turns his body, exposes the left elbow with the guard, and just boop, get hit. I'll take first base, please. Thank you. that he's so good at it, and that elbow guard is there for a reason. And the past 2 games, he's got hit in that elbow guard specifically, and it's hilarious because it's just like, okay, I'll take first. One of the more hit guys in the league, and he's an expert at it. You can see why. He's one of the most hit guys in the league. What else? What else with the Mariners, y'all? I mean, Cal Raleigh's looks like Cal Raleigh. His at-bats have impressed me this year. But towards the end of last year, you could tell the kind of work they did with him to kind of fit the prototype of the rest of the Mariners hitters where, top down the lineup is good, but even like the bad guys on the lineup will still, for the most part, give you pretty good at-bats at the plate. And that's all you can really ask for. But Cal's at-bats have really impressed me because he doesn't necessarily need to put amazing at-bats up. Like, he waits for that pitch in zone and he clobbers it, and he's still doing that a little bit this year, but working the counts has been more impressive to start the year this year from him. The production we're getting out of the DH spot is just right about what I expected. Cooper Hummel's been dreadful. AJ Pollock has not been very good. Tom Murphy is not DHing, but another guy who started the year very, very slow, but I'm not worried about Tom Murphy. I mean, he hasn't played baseball in a while, and I think as the year progresses, hopefully he starts to hit a little bit better. And then other DH like Tommy Estella's been awful. He'll be DFA'd very soon. I mean, it's like not anything out of the ordinary. It's not surprising the DH spot isn't producing anything. Like, even with the arrival, every fan on Twitter will tell you, the arrival of Jarred Kelenic, and he's him and all that. It's like, we still need DH, and I still am very much in the camp of, I don't care how good Kelenic is, even going into the year, didn't expect this good, but I don't care how good he is. They still should have signed another corner outfielder to at least DH a little bit too, or have Kelenic DH or something, and have it not be AJ Pollock. Or I can't do this again. It makes me frustrated with the offseason again. It just reminds me. It gives me flashbacks. But the DH spot is like the massive hole in this lineup, and it's not surprising. It's like everyone expected this. Of course, your DH is going to be a black hole in the lineup when your DHs are AJ Pollock, Cooper Hummel, and Tommy La Stella. Like, come on. It's terrible. It's a huge glaring issue, and an issue I talked about in the offseason and in the preview, where this lineup is pretty good, even with what Jarred Kelenic is doing. I still think they're one more impact bat. They're one more middle of the lineup bat away from being a very, very serious contender. And I still think that, and it's obviously very true with the DH struggles we've seen so far. So, not encouraging start to Cooper Hummel's Mariners career or Tommy La Stella's. AJ Pollock's at least looked somewhat competent at the plate. And it's not like they have anyone in the wings right now, prospect or just like minor league players they can put there. Like, if they DFA'd Tommy La Stella, like, who else is on the 40-man right now that could be called up and actually make an impact from the DH spot? Like, Jose Caballero was just called up, made his debut, which is very fun to see, but I don't think he's going to be very productive if they put him in the DH spot. I guess when Taylor Trammell comes back from his injury, like, maybe you put him at DH and hopefully he gives you more than he did at the plate last year. I don't know if they're ready to call up Cade Marlowe. He's on the 40-man. Like, Jonathan Clase is on the 40-man, but he's not ready to get called up. And even if, like, Cade Marlowe was putting up great numbers at Tacoma, I still wouldn't feel very confident about calling him up and being like, okay, you're in the DH spot now, you better hit. I just don't think he'll do that. And I get, like, Dylan Moore hopefully will be back soon, and with him back, maybe you can, and even with Haggerty back now too, you can play one of them in left field and DH Kelenic. I mean, you wouldn't with the defense he's playing. That's the funny thing is, you don't, right now, with the defense that both Teoscar and Kelenic are playing, and obviously Julio's the center fielder, the DH, the spot doesn't just fall to Teoscar or Kelenic at the moment with the defense that they're playing. I would have expected it to. I would expect Kelenic's defense to play better long term than Teoscar's, but I would have assumed Teoscar would be in the DH spot more, and then you put Haggerty or Moore in the corners, and that kind of solved your issue because Moore and Haggerty are, at least we've seen them be more competent at the plate than La Stella and like Cooper Hummel and AJ Pollock, I guess. But I don't know. It's a problem. It's a real issue. And I don't know how they're going to address it. But we'll see, I guess. I don't know. Jarred Porter's always got some random trade up his sleeve. Maybe Tyler O'Neill is unsettled in the Cardinals organization. And he wants out. And he wants to come back to Seattle. For Marco Gonzalez. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be funny. Let's do the reverse trade, huh? I'm done talking about the offense. The pitching has been, honestly, the pitching's been slightly disappointing to start the year. I guess from expectation to what the actual production is, it's been a little disappointing. Luis Castillo has not been. He's been proving that he is an AL Cy Young candidate, a leading AL Cy Young candidate. He's thrown 24 and 2/3 innings this year, struck out 26, walked 4, gave up 2 runs. He took a perfect game into the 7th inning today, lost it in the 7th. Felix Hernandez still reigns supreme. Sorry, Luis. Would have been cool, but I would like Felix to be the last perfect game haver forever, to be honest with you. But he's been fantastic. Oh God. I tweeted out that it's a spiritual experience watching him pitch, and it is. It's just so, it makes me tingle when I watch him pitch, man. Logan's looked good. George Kirby's looked a little not George Kirby-ish. Well, I mean, he's throwing lots of strikes still, but he's a lot more base runners than I think probably expected. But with pitchers, again, I have an even longer leash sample size wise with pitchers. Like after 10 starts, maybe I'll be like, I'm worried about George Kirby, but he's looked a little uncharacteristic, but still a good pitcher. Had a pretty solid outing the other day. Chris Flexen looked okay, I guess. Like I talked about earlier, he got mopped by the Cubs. And Marco's actually looked solid. He's looked very Marco Gonzalez-y to start the year, where the raw numbers don't jump off the page, but he's got an ERA plus of 105. He just had a kid, too. Congratulations to Marco. Hopefully he comes back from paternity. He pumping 97. He's just got newfound dad strength. He's now a power pitcher. He's throwing 96-mile-an-hour cutters now. That'd be amazing. Won't happen, but having a kid, man, it's helped athletes in the past. So, and people think Marco is like the worst pitcher in the league. So, if you're one of those people, he just had a kid, so be encouraged. We got 4 2/3 solid innings from Tommy Milone the other day. Very Mariners move to call up Tommy Milone for a spot start and have him put up very solid numbers in limited innings, and that was just funny. There was so much Jarred Kelenic hype again that day because he hit another home run. But then Tommy Milone silently puts up 4 2/3 on his way to a victory. Not a victory, but a no decision. But he helped us win that game by, come on, 4 2/3 solid innings from Tommy Milone. How long is he going to be able to do this? How long is Jerry Dipoto going to be able to get away with having Tommy Milone taxi from Tacoma to Seattle every so often, every season? Like, come on, how does it keep happening? And how does it keep going well? The bullpen has looked good, I'll say. Diego Castillo, I'm a little concerned about Diego Castillo, to be quite honest with you. He lit the world on fire last year to start the year, and really he wasn't awful to end the year, but he wasn't good. His numbers were bad to end the year. So going into the offseason, it was like he had good numbers on the whole and was very, very solid and very helpful in a lot of wins up until the All-Star break. And then really, like September, October, just didn't quite look like himself. And he's looked like that to start the year this year. I'm a little worried about him, to be honest. I'm more worried about relievers, like older veteran relievers who start to not, maybe lose their stuff, because it just happens to relievers. So I'm a little more like sample size wise, like, ooh, I don't know. He just hasn't looked good. Like, the numbers are bad, but in the 5 2/3 innings he's thrown, he just hasn't looked good, like, at all. But for as much as he hasn't looked good, and like Munoz is on the IL, Festa looked bad and is in Tacoma now. Gabe Spire has looked fantastic in the limited innings we've seen him in. Looks like I was clamoring for a free agent lefty reliever signing, and they gave me random Gabe Spire in the bullpen, who's been great and is the lefty in the bullpen that they need, and hopefully he continues this throughout the year. Trevor Gott, the lone free agent acquisition for this team for the longest time in the offseason, has looked very solid. Justin Topa's got nasty stuff. I had no idea he had this type of sinker-slider combo, because I didn't know much about Justin Topa, but he gets like 6 inches of vertical drop on that sinker more than average, which is insane. A classic 2020s era reliever. Crazy sinker, crazy slider, throws those 40% of the time each, and has looked solid. So they have to be proactive about the bullpen. Every team does, because you have like random, we've seen like Craig Kimbrell and Kenley Jansen, 2 of the best relievers of the past decade. We've seen them have seasons where they look amazing, then they look terrible. Then they look amazing, then they look terrible. That's just how relievers are. And so the team being able to, Jerry Dipoto and the organization, being able to find these cheap relievers and turning them into solid contributors in the bullpen is such a big strength. I tweeted about this, but if that's a big strength of yours, lean on that. And they have. They're proactive about it. They don't just say, we had a good bullpen last year, we're going to roll with the same dudes. Like, I know you lost a couple guys, but it's like Spire, Gott, and Topa are great examples of this season. Like, you say that to most people, no one knows who those guys are, but they look like long-term, this season at least, good pieces in the bullpen. And Paul Sewald is, I tweeted this too, the magnum opus of Jarred Kelenic is bullpen findings. Like, what a turnaround career-wise Paul Sewald's had since being on the Mariners, and he's the closer, looks like, this year with Munoz on the IL, and he's looked great in that role. Penn Murphy has continued what he did last year, and Matt Brash has looked good. He's looked good. He really is a great reliever. I think he's looked a little shaky at times to start this season, but overall body of work so far has been pretty solid, and nothing is alarming with him. It's still a decently high walk rate, but the stuff is still there. Like, the spin rates haven't changed much, the velocity hasn't changed much, so he's fine. But that's the pitching update. I'm not super worried about this pitching staff. It's just been a little not what we expected from Kirby, and like Ray hits the IL, so now they gotta throw Flexen, and Flexen looked terrible against the Cubs, but I'm sure he's all right. He's fine. He'll still eat some innings, and if they ever need a spot start from Tommy Milone, he's just an hour away in Tacoma, depending on the time of day you're driving to go to Tacoma. But I think, I'll say it, I think this team is pretty good. They're back at 500. They're playing, at least the past few days, it looks like they're playing competent baseball, fundamentally sound baseball. And that is very encouraging. That's very encouraging. I'm wrapping up here. I don't have much else to say besides some MLB stuff. The Rays finally lost. And the only other thing I want to say about the MLB, a lot of stuff happened, but I'm running this a little long. This is a Mariners podcast anyway. Fernando Tatis hit another home run today in AAA. He's hit like 8 now in his rehab assignment. That is just rude. It's just mean. I am all for rehab assignments and seeing amazing players play in the minors, but isn't this enough? Like, after the first week where he hit 4 home runs, couldn't you just be like, okay, just come to San Diego, hang out with the team, work out, hit off the tee, hit off the machine? What is the purpose of having him just rake against AAA pitching down there? I think it's just rude. They should have. He's eligible to come back in 4 days on 4/20. Nice, by the way. He's eligible to come back. And it's 4 days out. I'm so surprised he's still down there raking and they're letting him do that. I just feel so bad for those pitchers that have to face him, because what are you to do as a minor league pitcher and you're facing Fernando Tatis? Good Lord, man. But that is it for this podcast, the Jarred Kelenic episode. Your Mariners are 500. Like I said, they have the Brewers and the Cardinals to finish out this homestand. That is a very tough homestand. Just a brutal end to this month, too. So next week I'll record another podcast, but I'm intrigued to see what the team's record is come May 1st, because they're playing some real good baseball teams, these next 4 series is, but they're playing good baseball. They're playing good baseball, and they're at home for half of it. So intrigued to see what we will get. Intrigued to see how long Kelenic can keep up his hot streak of just being a fantastic baseball player. And I'm excited to continue to watch him come into his own as a Seattle Mariner, like we've all wanted. We've all wanted to see for years now Julio and Kelenic raking together. And we honestly haven't seen that this year together. We've seen them separately rake in games. I want to see a game where they both hit a home run in the same game. Will that ever happen? Laws of the universe state no. It won't. But I want it to happen. Wouldn't that be cool? But that's it. That is it for this podcast. Thank you for listening. Do all the things I always tell you to do. Or don't. You don't have to do those things. You are legally required to do them, and I will come after you. But you still have free will. So do what you want. But thanks for listening. And I will catch you next week. And, of course, go Mariners and go Jarred Kelenic.